about opposition and overcoming opposition. Let's go to Genesis 37. And opposition is part of life. You're going to have to face that. Probably in most of your cases, either you or someone before you, a generation or two or three, faced great opposition in their home country and faced great opposition to come to America, and they had to figure it out. And opposition is everywhere. And there is an easy path in life usually that has no opposition, and it's a very small life. And it's what you inherit. It's what the simplest people hand to you. It's what there's no challenges to do. And you can usually get by that way. You will not get very far, as we would say in life. There's an easiest person to marry. There's an easiest job to take. There's an easiest educational. There's an easy, and you can just let the wind blow you where the easiest spot is. But usually, if you follow where the wind blows everything, it's a big pile of garbage. And so you don't want to do that, and you're going to have to figure out how to overcome opposition in your life. And I was talking to someone this week, and they were had some struggles. I mean, their life was pretty tough, and really the amazing thing was, if you boiled it down, a whole bunch of their life has been dictated by them not knowing how to do some paperwork, and I said, and we're talking to somebody midlife. I said, you got to get that done. I don't know how to do it, and it's gonna cost, a decent amount of money, and $600, $800, $1,000. And I said, you can't work because of this. and look, you've had decades, and so if you don't know how to overcome things, you're just gonna be stuck, and it's a sad thing. Let's read about Joseph today. Joseph overcame opposition. Genesis 37. Who can name to me, and you don't have to get too personal, but just opposition that just say, I'd like to learn, or I have faced, or this is the opposition I faced, the type of opposition, the type of things I need to figure out how to overcome, or the type of things that life gives me, or the hardest thing I ever had to face, the opposition I had. Who can just name to me opposition they have or are facing? Just this is what I need to figure this out. This is something. It's a hill I don't know how to climb, or I had to climb. It was the hardest thing and changed my life. Who can give me something? Opposition, Sue.
I think the hardest thing right now for me is my daughter-in-law who's not saved, and these precious granddaughters that are so adorable, and they love us, we love them. But I think it's some kind of satanic thing because she's not letting us see them very often. We see them, but we want to see them a lot. So it's very, very difficult because I think, why is it happening?
Yeah.
We're not bad,
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Family opposition. It's a big one. Yeah. All right. Others? Yes.
Yeah, long time ago, I think 7 years ago, when we want to homeschool me or kid, it is a lot of opposition from my family and also church people that don't understand.
Okay. Very good. Yes.
When I was in high school, and said, told my mom and dad, my mom in particular, that I wanted to go to Bible college. I was afraid that was a waste of time and energy. I didn't want this until sex.
Okay. So it happens in a lot of different ways, a lot of different things in life, a lot of different challenges, and people face it in many ways. And wherever you stop overcoming opposition is where you're frozen. That's where you're frozen in life now. And if you're okay with that, then okay. There might become a hill where you say, I don't want to climb anymore, and I'm okay with where I am in life. But there's a lot of spiritual opposition. A lot of people come to a certain point and they just can't, this is going to be too hard to become a good Christian, or too hard to change this, or whatever. Starting a church, there's opposition. Anything great, there's opposition in. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. In a lot of areas of life. And so Genesis 37, Joseph his opposition. Let's look at Genesis, and let's start at 37 and verse 4. It says this, "And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said unto him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and his brethren, and his brothers, and his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee in the earth? And then down to verse 18. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to slay him. Talk about Joseph and overcoming disadvantages. Overcoming disadvantages. Let's pray. Father, the word is wonderful, Lord, and there's a lot of truth in here. And I pray that as we study, as we look, that you would help us, Father, to see how to overcome. I pray that your Spirit would certainly be here with us. And Lord, now we're talking about Joseph and his life, but I pray your Spirit would apply to each one of our lives and help us to see oppositions and overcoming them, and in this case disadvantages. Please, Lord, help us in this truth and in this way. In Jesus' name, amen. Joseph was disadvantaged. You last week you kind of talked about David. How he had opposition, and his opposition was a person. It was Saul, and a person with power and a person with authority opposing them and messing them up and doing all those things. And the opposition for David, he lived wisely. He just kept on doing what God gave him to do. He knew when to get away. He also let his family, let the Lord deal with him. Not his family, but let the Lord deal with Saul. And so God took care of it. Vengeance is the Lord's. Joseph is in a different situation. And I'd like to get into Joseph. Joseph was disadvantaged because of his situation in life, because of how he started, where he started. Joseph, it looks like by the numbers in the Bible, he's probably 17. If he wasn't, he was 16 or 18. He's right in that range because of the years they give in the Bible. So just imagine a 17-year-old walking behind a bunch of nomads headed down to a different country to be a slave. He's not going to be able to Skype his family. He's not going to be able to do anything. He's just gone. And his brothers were going to murder him, but to send him away into slavery to a different country in those days was as good as murdering him. You never see him again. Okay, you're not in today's day. Travel's not the same. Slavery's there, and look, when people went from Africa to America or to Europe or vice versa, where people went in slavery, they didn't go back home. You had to get in a boat somehow, and you had to know where that boat. Look, slaves could grab the ship. They didn't know how to sail it or get it back to that part of Africa. They didn't know there's that part of Africa. Okay, and so understand that sending someone away to slavery is like permanent. And just a few things here. First of all, his problem started with his family. His problem started with his family, and that is, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Probably, really, I didn't realize the depth of how much that affects you for many years. Because that's just what I grew up with was a disadvantage in my family, and but I didn't know how the statistics really now we understand just how bad your family can disadvantage you. I saw it often. I saw families worse than mine, and saw how kids turned out. I remember a kid we had in church, and he started coming to our church as a teenager. I don't remember how he reached him. Somebody invited him, and he came to church, and he got saved and gave him a Bible and. And his family, it turned out he was just always at church. Not the way I was. I was always at church because I wanted to do something. He was just always at church because he had nowhere to be. His parents just hated him and told him openly they hated him and just kicked him out of the house and just said, get out, we don't want you here. So he came home from school and come in the house, maybe eat, and then they'd say, all right, leave. And so he had nowhere to go all day. And so this kid would just, he had nowhere else to go. He used to just walk around the city and get in trouble, but he started to just come over to the church and hang out, and so we would take him with us and spend time with him. And I realized, man, this kid has, nobody who cares about him. And of course, the kid, he did well for several years. He got out of church eventually, and last time we saw him, he was in prison. And but the odds of him being in prison are super high because he's disadvantaged. Okay? Your family can start you off wrong. Your family can make you down. Your family can do all kinds of things. Look, if you had good success in life and it was boom, 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 boom in life, you didn't have to scratch and claw. Everybody, if you're successful, you had to work hard and you had to be diligent, all those things, understand that. But if it just kind of was a course, I can probably tell you had pretty good parents. Okay? Your parents, I'm not saying they were, winning souls and preaching the word of God. I'm just saying your parents were diligent people you probably had a mom and a dad at home, and they probably taught you to work hard. And it just flowed into naturally in adulthood. You understand, if you had that, you were advantaged massively. A mom and a dad who are married and are diligent and work a job, it doesn't matter if it's perfect, doesn't matter if you have that, you are advantaged in life. Every statistic says that. The success rate says that. Everything says that. You have a big advantage. Usually people don't know that because they will just see the faults in their parents. Yeah, my parents had this. My parents had some fights. My parents separated one time. My parents weren't like this. Understand, you do not understand. If you had a mom and a dad at home who worked a job and weren't drug addicts, you're advantaged. If they were good people and taught you good things, you're really advantaged. Okay? And your odds of success are tremendously higher. Okay? I'm the first college graduate. I am the only college graduate of anybody from my mom, my dad, and my siblings' dad. None of their kids graduated from college. None of them. Nobody in any direction. I'm the only college graduate because of home we came from. Okay, that's just life. Okay, because of how we grew up. And so his problem started with his family. His family sold him into slavery. His family were jealous of him and didn't like him, and it caused a big thing. Now let me just tell you, you got to read a lot of old books, which I do. It's very hard to understand unless you've read a lot of old books, and even nobody here is going to be old enough to even understand this. Family was a support network where if your farm failed over here, they took you in here because they knew a farm over here, or they would go and take you and give you advantage. One person from a family would come to America in order to bring the rest of them, the people. It was all helping each other. Okay, it was all a deal where you were going to do well because your family was going to help you. And by the way, they wouldn't help you if you're a slacker. And so understand, there's so many advantages to having a good family. And when your family is against you, boy, it can really, really mess things up. And especially in nomadic families. Okay? And so in this day, his problem started with his family. His brothers said, I'm jealous of you. Dad likes you more. You said these dreams, you're going to rule over us. We'll show you. And his family caused him his problems. And that just happens. Look, you come from a drug family, you got a disadvantage. You got a disadvantage. You come from a divorce home, the statistics massively change. No dad in the home, you're 6 times more likely to be in jail. And so the disadvantage started home. And I hope you praise God if you had a mom and a dad that stayed married while you're growing up. If you had a mom and a dad who were married while you were in the home, you got a good start. If dad went to work, now, there are some times when a mom and a dad are there and you're disadvantaged because of them. They're drug addicts. They're bringing. I mean, there's those circumstances where they are trouble and they are laying around all day and they're given disadvantage. But understand, his problem started with his family. Number 2, he was hated for no good reason. He was hated for no good reason. Look at chapter 37 and verse 3. It said, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was a son of his old age. And he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him." Is it Joseph's fault his dad gave him a nice coat and his dad loved him more? It's not his fault. Nothing he can do about that. And so, can you close that door there for me? It's not Joseph's fault, okay? But that's the way it is. And sometimes things aren't your fault. He was hated for no good reasons. It's because of his dad's favors. He got a vision from God, and the vision said that his brothers and mom and dad were all going to bow down to him. Now, is there wisdom in here that could help things? Sure. His dad might have liked one child more but not show it, and I think that's wise, by the way. Okay? I think that you can really make your siblings very jealous and angry at each other if you always say, "Why aren't you more like Bobby?" or whatever. You can cause problems, that stuff like that, and causing jealousy in the family. Yes, dad could have done something differently. Could he have not told the vision? And did he think that through about 10,000 times, probably sitting in jail and things? He might not have. However, God wouldn't have got as much glory if he wouldn't have told that vision. And God didn't tell him. Now, sometimes God told people, don't tell anybody this vision yet. Okay, but God didn't tell him not to tell that vision. And it was part of the plan. Okay? He was hated for no good reason. He could have second-guessed. His dad could have second-guessed. All those things. Dad might never known how much they hated him. But look, understand that he was just hated for without a good reason. That's what it said about Jesus. That's what it says about the apostles. And they hated me without a cause and all those things. Don't try to understand hatred. If you understand it, you'll be one of them. Okay? If you say, "I cannot understand hating people," good. Don't think you have to figure out how to think like them. Don't figure out how they think. The more you think and understand how they think, it's easier for you to slip into their thinking. Hate doesn't always make sense. Okay, why do they hate Jesus? What did he do? Well, he healed a bunch of people and helped a bunch of people and fed a bunch of people and taught them the truth. Okay? And cast out demons. I mean, hate doesn't make sense. So don't live your life saying, "Why do they hate me? Why do they hate me? Why do they hate me?" Hate doesn't make sense. Hate's a sin, and it's nasty and it's terrible, and it's just he was hated for no good reason. That's just the fact, and that affected his life. Number 3, he seemed to lose life's opportunities by no fault of his own. He was sold into slavery. Look, if you were kidnapped today and taken to be a slave in some foreign country, and thank God slavery's outlawed everywhere. And by the way, slavery is not biblical. Read the book of Philemon. Love your neighbors yourself. Okay, and so, but if you were taken to some country and it is slavery, look, doesn't matter what degree you have. Doesn't matter. You're in trouble. Okay, you're in trouble. And so he seemed to lose life opportunities. He was going to be part of a family that was wealthy. He was going to be part of the inheritance. He was going to be growing up where there's food all the time and everything all the time, and he got to run around and play and do what he wanted to do, but he lost that advantage of his family and this family with promise and blessing on it. He seemed to lose opportunities. And by the way, you will lose opportunities because of things that happen in life. And you have that. And where you're born, look, where you're born and what your family's like, it's a big teller of your future success, just earthly speaking. I'll just be honest with you. I looked in the projects in Chicago with no dad there and a 20-story building with wars going on and shooting and unbelievable. The kids, I'm telling you, the kids in 6th grade couldn't write. They would write like a kindergartner here. And their English was so bad with the inner city ghetto talk and the violence and the rudeness and not understanding any manners and no diligence. They'd never seen an adult work. Okay? Look, I'll be honest with you. It was pretty discouraging thinking, how are these kids ever going to turn out? They're disadvantaged. And they are. And I understand that. I'm not claiming victimhood. I'm just saying they got to, look, your life might have started like downhill or level. Their life's starting like this. Okay? They're going uphill. And that's why church tries to work with these young people who have these things. And we spend time with, why? Because they're disadvantaged. It's a tough road to hoe. Look, how are you going to go and work on Wall Street when all you're going to talk is, who dat, man? Think about that. That's just a fact. Okay? We don't know how to say thank you. Well, you don't even know what punch into your work means. Okay? When every adult male you know goes to prison, and the only people you know who have money are drug dealers, you're at a disadvantage, okay? And so he started that, and so he started. Doesn't mean they have to be that way. They can overcome. They can have victory. All those things can happen. But that's where he was. Number 4, he did the best with what was handed to him. Look, it's a good 39. Here he lands in slavery. He's sold to a man named Potiphar. In chapter 39. And by the way, we should have compassion on people who are disadvantaged. Amen? Compassion. Not bitterness and anger and, boy, the pathetic people. Look at those people. Why are they acting that way? That's why they're acting that way. That's all they know. Go help them instead of looking down on them. And 39, Genesis 39. And verse 1, it says, and Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer and Pharaoh's captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, an Egyptian. And so he went, and he got sold into slavery to a man named Potiphar. And what did he do? He worked hard. He did good. He did the best he could in this situation. And that was what was handed to him, a tough situation. And verse 4, and Joseph found grace in his sight and served him and made him overseer over his house and all that he had put into his hand. And it came to pass the same time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all he had. And the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in his house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand. And he knew not aught that he have, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well-favored. I mean, you know what that means? Joseph was well off. Why? He was working hard for a successful man, and the successful man blessed him. I want to tell you something, and please understand, it's hard to talk about this because we don't understand this in Seattle, because Seattle's way different than Chicago. One of the things I realized was in Chicago, so fascinating to me, and Chicago was so, in the late 80s, early 90s, so racially divided. You did not cross this street to that street. That street was black. This street was Hispanic. This was Mexican, not Hispanic. This is Mexican. That's Puerto Rican. This is white. And you didn't cross. I was the only person who crossed in between, okay? And they didn't mix. And I remember we were we used to clean the exhaust systems in the restaurants and talking to these restaurant owners in these neighborhoods. And most often, for whatever reason in Chicago, a huge percentage of the restaurant owners are Greek. Okay, they just owned a lot of the restaurants for whatever reason. And I remember I was right next to a huge set of projects, and he was right on the border of the black area and then a white area. He's right in the area there, and actually so close that both people came just to his restaurant. And he was talking one night, and he says, it would help my business so much if I could get a black employee in here. He said, I would not only hire him, but I'd move him up. He said, and or her, and promote them in here. He said, it really would help my business. He said, it would stop a lot of the crime against me. He says, but I cannot get them to come work for me. But if they did, I'd really raise them up quickly. And I try to catch them when they come in here and talk to them and say, would you like a job? But he says, if they get the job, they lose their benefits. And he says, it's a terrible system, and it's all bad, and it's all trouble. And I thought, man, this guy wants to hire one of these minorities who are just sitting there struggling and can't make it, and he's going to promote them to his manager. He wants to do that. And I thought, man, if one of these people just come in here and start working, they would do well. And I thought, man, And he tried it a couple of times, and they stole his money, and it was a mess. And understand, and I'm not saying it's because of any race, look at our church, we have no racism here. I'm just saying, people, if they will go in and work hard. I told people who say, I have no experience, and I graduated from high school, I got my GED, whatever, I said, look, go flip burgers and be the best burger flipper. Just see what happens. And you know what? You might be a manager at McDonald's. They'll send you to Hamburger University, they call it. That's what they call it, okay, to train you to be a manager, okay? And you know what? You'll do okay. And you know what? When they find out you're the best worker and they promoted you to, assistant manager at McDonald's, another company will want to hire you. And just do your best with where you are. Take advantage of where you are and be the best you can be where life has placed you. And just see where it goes. You'd be surprised nowadays, if you're a good worker, how you get people's attention. And all of a sudden, like, hey, this guy, look at him. And look at her, and you get that advantage. And so do the best. He did the best. He was loyal to this man. His wife tried to cheat, and his wife was out of town, Potiphar's wife, and Potiphar's out of town, and she tried to cheat on Joseph. And Joseph said, no, look, I am not going to do this to the man who's been so good to me. Chapter 39 and verse 7, it came to pass after these things, as his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me, and he refused, and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in this house, and he hath committed all that which he hath to my hand. There is nothing greater in this house than I. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me. But because thou art his wife, how then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? He said, look, this guy's been good to me. I'm not going to do that to him, and I'm not going to do that to God. He was loyal to his employer, and he did bad. That's where he was. He was a slave in Potiphar's house. Said, I'm going to work hard here, and I'm going to treat him right. And he got blessed because of it. And you just do the best with whatever you're handed, and you do that. Look, you're going to start off, in most cases, with disadvantages. Now, if you don't, praise God. But look, I listen to the Greatest Generation, who grew up during the Depression, and they were a bunch. And my wife's grandma, they grew up they were in North Dakota, and they just got creamed in a couple of bad years in the crops, and they were gone. And all their kids had to be given out to farms. They couldn't feed their kids. And kids between 11 and 16, 20, they were like, okay, I found a farm, will take you. You're going to go live there now and work for them. And the family just went, whoosh. That's just what they had to do. But they all made it because they didn't have the mentality of, well, I'm disadvantaged, I can't make it. You can make it. There's many disadvantages we face today. Kids who have to be an adult too young. You don't have this as much anymore, but sometimes you have, and I still know it right now. I know people in our church where all of a sudden the oldest girl has to be mom. And now she can't go to college, or she can't do this or can't do that in many cases. And she and sometimes a boy had to drop out of school to go work in years past. Because dad disappeared, and somebody was worth a family, and it was a different world, and things like that happen where disadvantages. I think of the dreamers. You know what dreamers are? The dreamers are the people whose parents came here illegally, and they came here as a child. I don't know how many I know right now. I know multiple dreamers. They didn't choose to come to America. They came here. I talked to somebody this week who came here at 2. They don't know their native tongue. They could go back to their country because they don't know the culture, they don't know the language, they don't know anything. And their parents brought them here illegally, and the parents didn't file paperwork for them. You know what? They're sitting here and they don't have a Social Security number. They don't have they can't work like everybody else. But they've been here for 20, 30, 40 years. And it's a disadvantage. We'll have those in church this morning, by the way. Multiple ones. Okay? What do? They're disadvantaged. What do? Whatever job they get, they work as hard as they can. And they should file the paperwork and look, understand, nobody knows what's going to happen right now. If they file their paperwork, they might just as well get deported as get their Social Security card. It's very complicated. And look, it's tough. And we deal with it all the time because and we got so many immigrants in our church. I'm trying to find a good immigration lawyer with cheap rates, and there's some terrible immigration lawyers. Our people have been through the process that scam these people and keep them trying and never get into and it's just terrible. And look, it's a disadvantage. You're just starting off tough. It's a hard thing to be that. People who miss college, people who are in the third world. Look, they're in a poor country, and no matter how hard they work, they're in a poor country. They're disadvantaged. But you know what you can do is you can say, where has life put me right now? And let me do my very best right here and work as hard as I can right here and see if God won't bless this thing. If God won't bless me for my hard work. And you'll be surprised as the cream rises to the top. The cream rises to the top. And so you can do that. And so do your best. I know a guy, and he's not here right now, but we had a guy who came to our church in the past, and this guy spent 10 years in penitentiary. 10 years. I didn't even ask him what he did. And this guy, 10 years in penitentiary, I've never known this guy to be unemployed. And every time I've known him, every company he's been at, he's rose to the manager. Now, I think that's 3 different companies since I've known him. I keep track. We talk sometimes and stuff like that. And he becomes a manager. At every job I've known him, he becomes a manager. In 2 different fields. Now, is that hard? Yes. You have 10 years. 10 years. So you got sentenced to 15 years. So you didn't, run a red light. Okay? Now, I don't know what he did. And you know what? It's hard to get a job that way, isn't it? But you know what? He straightened his life out, became a Christian, worked hard, and does well. He had a disadvantage, but he climbed the hill. And by the way, don't give yourself disadvantages. Climbing hills aren't fun. But you know what? That doesn't mean you can't do your best and all of a sudden find a way to succeed. Anybody succeeds. I'm not supposed to succeed. Okay? And anybody can do well if they'll do their best with what they're handed. If God looks down and says, you are being faithful in the least, I'll make you faithful in much. Do your best with what you're handed. Next, though he did his best, he was still hurt by other people. Potiphar's wife accused him of rape. He got put in jail. In jail, he met, let's go to chapter 39. He gets put in jail. Verse 20, chapter 39, 20, it said Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison. and so there he was in prison. But what does he do? He works hard. And he does all that he should do. And in verse 21, it said, the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keepers of prison. And the keepers of prison committed into Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison. And whatsoever they did there, he was a doer of it. And the keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And all that he did, the Lord made it to prosper. He prospered in prison. But in prison, he gives some dreams to some people, and guess what they did? Down in verse 27 of chapter 40, it says this, yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. He was supposed to have that guy help him out when he got out of prison, and the guy forgot all about Joseph. Look, he was doing the right thing, and still people hurt him. And just understand, people are going to hurt you in life. It's a fallen world. There's bad people. There's people the devil deceives. There's people who have make bad decisions. There's people who are against you because you're successful. It's a weird world out there. If your family is not successful and you succeed, many times they'll be jealous of you and hate you. If they have a bad family and you have a good family, they'll think they won't like you because of it. If you're happy and they're miserable, guess what? They want you to be miserable too. And so listen, people, even if you do the right thing, even though he did the right thing, he was still hurt by more people. You're going to get hurt. You're going to have people who treat you wrong. It's earth. It's a fallen world. It's a sin-cursed world. People are petty sometimes. If you're doing the right thing, don't spend your life second-guessing because of what other people do. Now, if a lot of people who are wise are telling you you're doing something wrong, then listen to them, but understand. But people will still hurt you, even if you do the right thing. Understand that's why you got to keep doing right. What does Joseph do? If Joseph throws his hands up, I quit. I keep on trying, everything goes wrong. No. Keep doing right, you're going to be the number 2 man in the world. Understand that Joseph became the number 2 man in the world because he kept on doing right, even though he's hurt again. And he did that. But he did the best of what was handed to him, which is in jail. Next, since he pleased the Lord, man's mess-ups could not keep the blessings away. Chapter 39. Because he pleased the Lord, man's mess-ups could not keep the blessings away. That's such a security there. Look, if I serve God, me with all my disadvantages that I started with in life, and I started with a lot of them, not as bad as the people I worked with in the projects, but I started with a lot of disadvantages. If I do what God wants me to do, I cannot help but to be blessed by God. Chapter 39 and verse 2, it says, And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. And he was the house of Joseph, and he was the house of the Egyptian. Verse 3, and his master saw that the Lord is with him, and the Lord made all that he did to prosper. There's it again. Verse 21, thrown into jail, but the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. God said to the keeper of the prison, tapped his heart and said, notice that guy Joseph up there? Isn't he amazing? You like him, don't you? You like him. And now, all of a sudden, that guy liked him. Good things are going to happen. Look, if you're the guy in charge of the entire prison, guess what? You're not getting all the worst prison food. You get the best cell at least. Okay? And look, God was with them and it couldn't keep him down. And if God is with you, nobody can keep you down. If God is with you, nothing can keep you down. If God is with you, you can make it no matter what your disadvantage is. No matter who you married, no matter how much you messed up, no matter what your background, you can make it and God can bless you. Look, with these immigration, we're dealing with it right now with some people. I mean, boy, it's trouble, and it's dangerous, and they don't and they need to stay here. They need to stay here. They're in danger in their home country. They don't know their home country. They don't speak the language. They have no way to. They don't know anybody. You know, if they will please God, the right lawyer, the right status, the right law, the right judge will come along. And they'll be blessed. Okay? And they'll be blessed. And so they just have to do that. And God can take care of them. And God did that. And so Joseph, look at Joseph's feeling. He knew he was doing the right thing. If you look at chapter 40 and verse 15, it says, For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. Joseph knew he didn't do anything wrong. Joseph knew he was doing the right thing. And he knew God's going to take care of him. I mean, God kept on blessing him. Since his ways pleased the Lord, the blessing came anyway. He became very powerful. I want to read you a verse. It's Proverbs 16 and verse 7. It's a beautiful verse. Proverbs 16 and verse 7. If you can't fix things with man, fix things with God, and really just work on pleasing God. Chapter Proverbs 16 and verse 7. When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Now, did it happen right away with Joseph's brothers? No. Did it happen right away with Potiphar? No. But you know what? I bet you when Pharaoh made Joseph the number 2 person in the entire country, I bet Potiphar said, you know, Joseph, I think, you're a pretty great guy. I'm sorry about that. Why? Because God is with Joseph, and God, if you'll please him, he can give you favor with anybody you need to have favor with. And that's the blessing. Number 7. His life, though up and down, was part of God's plan. Chapter 50. His life, though was up and down, though he had some hard knocks in there, was part of God's plan. Chapter 50 and verse 20. But as for you, ye thought it evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring to pass that it is this day to save much people alive. Look, his brothers and sisters, he wasn't bitter at them. He didn't hate them. He saved them. He kept them alive. And he said, look, God, you meant this thing for evil to me. You were against me, but God meant it for good. God's sovereignty kicked in, and God used my up and downs. And now my family, and my dad, and my nieces and nephews, and all of my brothers you're all going to be fine. Because God used it. Understand, nothing can happen without God's, approval. There's no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. I want to take you to one more verse, 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 4. And it says this, 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 4. It says, who comforteth us in all our tribulations, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble, by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted of God. One of the reasons God helps you is so you can go help somebody else with what you got from God. That's been a big part of my ministry. It's why I work with troubled people, is because of my troubled past, and I can say, look, God can take care of you and bless you, and you can change and be victorious. That's something that you use what God gave you and what God did in your life. And so if you've been through troubles or you've had heartaches, understand that though you might be Joseph, Joseph can now use that for God. And your troubles, whether it's physical or family or emotional or upbringing or whatever, if you can do the right thing and have victory, now you can go help somebody else who is in those shoes. For many years, we had a problem where I needed a single mom to get her life together, to take care of herself, get back on her feet, and on her own 2 feet, stand up and raise the kids right and do all the things right. I needed that because I needed a lady to go tell single moms that, because single moms would say, well, you don't know what it's like to be a single mom. Okay, now, look, wisdom is true whether it's, an 80-year-old, an 80-year-old man telling you something, or whether it's a 15-year-old kid. Truth, okay? But it does help when somebody else can show you the example. It does help. It's an advantage. And look, when you make it, understand, when you find a way to make it over your obstacles that are given to you and your disadvantages, now you can show somebody else you can make it. You can make it. And that's one of the greatest things you can do is I think of one of our bus kids from Chicago in the inner city there, and she made it, and she went to Bible college, and she did all those things, and with all the disadvantages and everything else, and and how she went to Bible college, married a preacher, and now he's a pastor in Stockton, California. Stockton's not Bellevue. Okay, and guess what? God can use her there. You say, I grew up with the gangs all around me. I grew up and God can use that. Why? Because when you overcome your obstacle, not only have you had victory and you have a blessed life now, not only can you say, hey, God help me, I went through that, and no matter what it is, what heartache or trouble or obstacle or you had to face, you can say, God help me, and now you can show somebody else, hey, come on, let me show you can make it. And the words you can make it, I did, are very powerful. And so overcome the obstacles that you have, climb your hill, because then at the top of the hill you can throw a rope down and help somebody. And so overcome your obstacle. Joseph's obstacle, Joseph's obstacle was disadvantaged. A hard start. A hard start, being 17, you're starting your career off as a slave in a different country. And yet, look at him. He rose and did well.